here. Jeff Wolf's here. Nice to see you too. A lot of people, a lot of familiar faces. This is great. So feel free to throw chat in there, give some accolades to our readers. We're going to have 6 readers, count them, 6, from this anthology that I edited over the summer. My name is Vince, by the way. You're coming in now. So I edited this anthology of Chicago writing that looks like this, called Open Heart Chicago. And, I will, before this night is over, pop a link into chat for you to purchase it in case you'd like to, because why not? And I was kind of talking a little bit about like the genesis of this thing earlier and how Bathsheba Monk, who I believe is also with us tonight, publisher of Blue Heron Bookworks, kind of approached me with this when we were talking about the workshop I was working with. So, and now we have it. We have this thing out there into the world. And this is our second reading to promote it. The first was an actual launch. This is our first virtual reading. We may do more of these, but I really wasn't sure. So pulling off one of these is hard enough. I thought we would do this and we would pack it with 6 of the stars from the book. And I picked these 6, not necessarily at random, but like I had some sort of ideas. I thought they would be a very interesting representation of the many different styles and voices that are found within these pages. And, we'll hear from them shortly. So without further ado, I first want to thank the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame. I always stumble on that name. Sorry, Amy. Chicago Literary Hall of Fame for hosting this event. That's big. It's really big that we actually have you supporting our little endeavor. So thank you very much for that. And if I could do a quick little, shout out to some events coming up and a little bit of their mission statement, bear with me shortly. Bear with me for a second. So the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame's mission is to honor and preserve Chicago's great literary heritage, as well as to help foster new voices. Through events, programs for adults and kids, and efforts to reach across boundaries to engage an array of communities, the organization strives to promote Chicago writers and educate the public locally, nationally, and internationally about the past, present, and future of Chicago as a cradle of literary excellence, which I do believe it is. The organization is looking for volunteers, interns, and new members for its associate board. And if anyone is interested in connecting with the organization in any of these ways, they can reach out to Amy Danzer, who is somewhere. You'll see, if you have gallery view, you'll see Amy. She's in my upper corner there. So wave hello, Amy, to the nice people. There you go. And I'll put her connects there in the chat a little bit in case you are interested in being involved. The next big event they're going to host is Thursday, March 24th at the American Writers Museum, which if you haven't been there, go check that out. Where the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame will honor acclaimed author Ana Castillo, who is fantastic. Ana Castillo is getting the Fuller Award for Lifetime Achievement, which is well earned. Read Ana Castillo, she's great. Details can be found on their website, which I will also post a link to shortly. For any more information about it, and any other program and resources, just check out the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame's website. It's a great resource for a lot of things going on locally. Without further ado, I think it's only, oh, thank you, Amy. You were nice enough to put your email already in chat. Without further ado, I would love to introduce our first reader, who is, as we mentioned earlier, reading a very relevant story called Dibs. This is Steve Trumpeter. So Steve's bio is as follows. Steve Trumpeter's fiction has appeared in Southern Review, American Fiction, Chicago Quarterly Review, Salamander, and others. And he was a finalist for the Chicago Tribune's 2019 Nelson Algren Award. Really? You were a finalist for that? That's impressive. I'm suddenly a lot more intimidated by you, Steve. In 1996, he emigrated from Tennessee in order to earn a degree in fiction writing from Northwestern University. He has lived in the city proper for longer than he lived in the South, so he now identifies as an official Chicagoan who believes that Dibs' claims are valid, but only for 3 days. Steve teaches at Story Studio Chicago, and his writing, oil painting, and music can be discovered at his website, which is stevetrumpeter.com. Without further ado, take it away, sir.
Thanks, Vince. My mother just got a little sad about that line of me being a Chicagoan now, but it's true. Sorry, there's Mom. 4 inches of snow outside my window, so this is a perfect story for tonight. It's called Dibs. My husband, Jacob, is snoring on an air mattress in the bedroom, and our 5-year-old is sitting in the middle of our hardwood floor, squeezing Play-Doh between his fingers. All of his other toys are packed away. We each have one change of clothes in an unsealed box in the hall by the bathroom and some toiletries on the sink. But outside of that, this apartment is as bare as the day we moved in, before Samuel was even born. The space haunts me, empty and uncluttered as it is, the counters and floors scrubbed clean like a crime scene, except for the spots where Samuel has mashed Play-Doh between the slats. From the upstairs apartment, I hear Mrs. Finelli clomp across the kitchen in her cupboard-rattling way. Jacob and I like to make mafia jokes about her cement shoes, a little on the nose perhaps, given the way she speaks of her ex-husband, but the footsteps never really bothered me. I've always found the sounds of my neighbors to be comforting. The low infrasonics of their TVs, wall-dampened conversations, even squeaky bed springs and climactic moans all served as proof that I inhabited a society. Tonight, there is strident purpose in her heavy steps as she scoots all the way from the kitchen to the living room turret windows at the front of the building. I hear her throw open the window and shout out to the street. "You can't park there," she screams. "That's my spot. It's reserved." I peer out my own window and see two young dude bros in puffy, oversized jackets standing on the curb next to a pair of folding chairs they've tossed into a snowdrift on the sidewalk. There's a BMW parked where Mrs. Finelli's spot should be, right in front of the U-Haul moving truck we've rented that holds all the accumulated things that once made this apartment a home. "Sit and spin, lady," the short one says, holding up a middle finger. "It's a public street." "That's my spot," she yells again, but the men just head up the block, laughing at her. Mrs. Finelli has her own son who still lives with her. He's in his early 20s, a sweet enough kid who always looks after our plants when we're out of town, but he's also kind of a dipshit. Ostensibly, he attends junior college studying computer science and works evenings in a vape shop in Logan Square. As far as his facility with computers goes, from what I've heard through the ceiling, it mostly consists of jerking off to internet porn while his mother's at church in the mornings. His other obsession is his Honda, which casts a neon purple glow on the pavement and sits a few inches off the ground with its tires cambered at such a tilt that the car looks perpetually knock-kneed. When we got 1.5 feet of snow dumped on us last week, his mother waited for the snowplows to rumble through, then spent 2 hours digging that Honda out for him while he slept in, just so he wouldn't be late to work. After he left, she dragged 2 folding chairs into the spot to claim dibs. And while it's been 5 days since the snow has fallen, it hasn't melted yet, putting us well into the gray area of an unwritten Chicago statute that seems to revel in its fluid interpretation. The door upstairs slams and startles Samuel, followed by the rumble of Mrs. Finelli bounding down the stairs. Samuel is grimacing at the taste of his red Play-Doh. "That stuff's not food," I say for the 100th time. "Come here." He spits out the Play-Doh into my hand. "Stay and watch this with me," I say. Mrs. Finelli marches out to the curb and shouts up the street, shaking her fist like a cartoon character. Samuel rubs his tongue with the palm of his hand to get the taste out of his mouth. "What's happening?" he asks. "We're going to make one last memory of the city you were born in," I say. Perhaps this isn't very good mothering on my part, but I want him to have this one last image of city living. He hugs my legs and peers out the window from behind me as if he might get in trouble for spying. "Don't be such a fraidy cat," I say. "Watch." In Chicago, dibs might be an unwritten rule, but the consequences are clear. You violate the rules, you risk your tires, your windows, your paint job. Mrs. Finelli looks up and down the street as if she's searching for witnesses to share her outrage, but there's no one out tonight. She picks up a chair, and I hold my breath and scratch Samuel's back like I do when he's been crying for reasons he can't express. "Here we go," I whisper. But Mrs. Finelli only folds up the chair and leans it against the tree in her planter. Samuel lets go of my leg and returns to his spot on the floor, exhaling like he's escaped a doctor visit without any shots. I squeeze Samuel's spit-slimy glob of Play-Doh like a stress ball and watch Mrs. Finelli drag her folding chairs back to the apartment building, muttering impotent curses in her mother tongue. We're moving to Naperville for Samuel so he can go to a good school. That's what Jacob says anyway. The Chicago public school system is a gamble, he says, and the odds aren't good. He drives our boy to Spanish lessons twice a week and reads to him every night before bed. There are piano lessons and little yogi yoga classes. Every Thursday, we all go out to dinner together, and Jacob makes a lesson out of Ethiopian cuisine or sushi or Dutch Indonesian fusion. But there are times like right now, as I watch Samuel switch to the blue Play-Doh and make that lemon wedge face all over again, when I wonder what lessons he really needs. Does this boy honestly require every single academic advantage humanly possible? Are we laying claim to something to which we have no right? That stuff's not food, I say for the 101st time. The air mattress is only a full-size bed rather than the California king that's waiting for us in Naperville, and my husband has put on a few since I married him, so I give Samuel the spot next to Jacob and resign myself to his thermarest in the living room. I'll be up all night anyway, despite being worn out from a day spent carrying box after box down 2 flights of stairs. I'll grind my teeth to the sounds of Mrs. Finelli pacing angrily around her living room while her kid circles the block in futile search of a legal parking spot. I know she's mad that she chickened out, and I'm ashamed to admit I'm a little embarrassed for her too. Jacob's keys are on the bench by the turret window, along with the contents of his pockets. He already has the Metro Pass that will get him downtown and back each day, tucked into the plastic sleeve that houses his work ID. It's only 35 minutes if I catch the express, he says. I used to bike to work, but now I'm going to freelance part-time from home, at least for the next couple months while we test out the transition, as my supervisor puts it. Unwilling to admit she's going to whittle down my assignments until I transition into a stay-at-home mom. Our new place is only 10 minutes from the grocery store, though the realtor means driving, not walking. And because we'll have a heated driveway, oh, wonders of suburban technology, I'll never have to shovel out a parking space again. Samuel sucks his thumb while he sleeps, and I try to imagine him someday using a key to etch a dick into the paint job of a BMW that some asshole parked in his rightful spot. The next morning, when Jacob wakes up, he says I look tired and loads Samuel into the Odyssey that's filled with the fragile things we can't trust in the U-Haul. He wants to get one last breakfast at the brunch spot on the corner, but I tell them to go ahead without me. I'll get a head start in the truck and meet them at our new house. I walk through the apartment, saying goodbye to each tiny room, and though I want to go upstairs and give Mrs. Finelli a big hug before I leave, her son is home and I don't feel comfortable interrupting their morning. I go downstairs and climb into the truck, and from this height, the snow doesn't look so deep. The BMW from last night is still parked in Mrs. Finelli's spot, and as I pull out, I make sure to run the truck's front bumper along the length of the car's passenger side. The reverberating screech of metal on metal rings in my ears long after I hit the traffic on the Tri-State Tollway near the exit to the towns with names I'll soon have to learn. Thank you.
So we're doing the thing where this is the Zoom applause, right? We could do the literal thing, or we could do the jazz hands applause, but very good, Steve. I mean, I basically wanted to include that story. It was one of the first that came my way. So thank you, by the way, Steve, for sending me something like immediately. And I knew immediately that had to be in there because somebody had to write about dibs, right? It's something that absolutely has to be, that and hot dogs with ketchup has to be in the book. Those are the only two things I knew. So nicely done, Steve. So next reader is Cyn Vargas. Cyn is a native Chicagoan who grew up on the Northwest Side, still calls the city home. Her short story collection On the Way, published originally by Curbside Splendor and second edition by Tortoise Books, received positive reviews from Shelf Awareness, Library Journal, Heavy Feather Review, New City Lit, Hypertext Magazine, Necessary Fiction, and others. Her prose and essays have been published in the Chicago Reader, Word Riot, Split Lip Magazine, Hypertext Magazine, Midnight Breakfast, and elsewhere. You can visit her website at www.cynvargas.com to learn more. I'm going to make sure I put my gallery view off because I want to see your big faces take up the whole screen as you read. And well, no pressure now that all the focus on you, but without further ado, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. I have a big face to begin with, so you may go back to gallery. So thank you, Vince and Amy. I'm just going to be reading from the beginning of my story, On the Way. People used to say I was my daddy's girl. I went everywhere with him, to the store, to the mechanic, to his poker games because he said I was his good luck charm. He and mom would laugh when they weren't fighting. Things never seemed that bad. And when dad left for work one day and didn't come home, I didn't know why. He's just gone, baby, mom said. Soon after that, she began working double shifts, and grandma, dad's mom, moved in with us a little after that. She'd been kicked out of her nursing home for cursing out the staff and throwing things at other patients again. Mom wouldn't tell me where dad went, and after a few weeks, I stopped asking. But I wrote him letters that I crammed into blank envelopes and put in the mailbox down the street. I never told anyone about this, not even my best friend, Benny. I knew they would never get to dad, but they had to go somewhere, I figured. Grandma yanked me by the arm while waiting for the Cicero bus. Her sharp nails dug into my skin. The bus doors opened and she pulled me up the steps as though afraid I'd escape. "She 9, Grandma yelled at the bus driver, a fat woman with CTA stretched out beyond recognition on her wide blue sleeve. The bus driver bent at the waist as far as she could. One of her hairy brows raised and she eyed me up and down like I was a criminal. "You're 9, she asked me. I felt Grandma's nails on the back of my neck and I nodded. "She 9, Grandma said again. Sighs and a couple of come ons echoed from the back. I hadn't been 9 for almost 5 years. The bus driver waved her big hands and we boarded. There were 2 empty seats left, one way in the back where some kids sat and laughed, and one toward the front where the old people were. Grandma said nothing and shoved me into the seat between 2 old folks that reeked of Bengay and hairspray. "You're not 9, said one of the old ladies. Her hands were shaking, and the bunch of keys that hung off the strap of her purse jangled. Her lips were thin and wrinkled, just like the rest of her. She had big brown blotches on her face, the color of the oatmeal cookies we ate at home. "Yeah, you're not 9, said the other. Her lips had no wrinkles, but her hands had big blue veins like pipes beneath her skin. I did what I usually do when I don't know what to say to strangers. I acted like I didn't understand. I shook my head and raised my arms, my palms toward the sky like I was balancing an invisible glass in each one. It was easier than explaining Grandma didn't want to dish out an extra $1 to let me on the bus, even though she had wads of cash in her bra. I watched her take out a stack of bills, damped with sweat and smelling like the Walgreens perfume she wore, to pay for things like vitamins and pantyhose at stores. The old lady with permed hair shook her head. She sneered at me and said, "You're a liar. You should be ashamed of yourself." Her words made my skin itch. I looked to my side and the other old lady was nodding in agreement. I leaned even further to scan the back of the bus, past a couple making out and the baby crying and flailing its arms like it was winding up to fly away, and spotted Grandma eating one of her cookies that she always kept inside her purse, wrapped in like 20 napkins. I wanted to get up, walk over and yank that cookie out of her mouth. She'd put me in that seat. She'd refused to pay because she was cheap. She dragged me everywhere since Mom had to go to work. And she was the one that made sure I knew that my dad left almost half a year ago because Mom and I didn't make him happy. I stared at Grandma and wished she could feel my eyes on her. In the morning, she'd stomp from our spare room and plop down at the breakfast table. It was my responsibility to make sure we ate, since Mom had to leave for work before the sun came up. Grandma would shoot herself up with the medicine for her diabetes and wait at the table till I was finished, cooking breakfast: eggs, no salt, toast, no butter, hand-squeezed orange juice from the oranges she got from the guy that sold fruit out of the back of his truck. We got mangoes from the fruit truck guy too. I loved mangoes. I loved slicing them up in 3 perfect pieces and sprinkling them with chili powder and lemon juice and sucking the juice from them. Dad taught me how to eat mangoes like that. We'd sit on the back porch and he would scrunch up his face and smile. "This chili is hot, too hot for you, Lucia." I would take him up on his challenge. I'd take a piece of mango off his plate, the fruit slimy under my fingertips, raise it to my lips, the juices dripping onto my lap, and take a bite. I tried not to make a face, but he would watch me and laugh when my eyes began watering. I was staring at the floor of the bus when I saw Grandma's familiar shoes. "Vámonos," she said, and hurled me off my seat. I turned back to the 2 old ladies, but neither of them bothered to look at me. She wouldn't let go of my wrist as we walked. This meant she was tired, and with her swollen ankles couldn't walk as fast as I could. She used me to keep her balance. In these moments when she needed me, like when she couldn't get the needle in or needed me to make her breakfast, she didn't say one word about Mom, didn't call her bad words in Spanish and say she was the reason my father left because a real wife stayed home and didn't go out to work, the reason I was a spoiled brat, the reason she was going to die without seeing her son again. Mom told me Grandma was just old and bitter and to ignore her, but all I wanted to do was yell at her. I think Mom hoped that Dad would come back one day and see how great she was for taking care of his mother. "Ahí," she said, pointing to some dirty stone building that looked abandoned. "What is this place?" I said. But Grandma, who understood more English than she let on, just slapped me on the back and pushed me toward the door. The lobby smelled musty. A dusty gumball machine with no gumball sat in the corner. Almost all the seats in the room were filled with women. The only males were babies, cradled in their mother's laps. One little boy with barely any hair played all alone near a chair with a teensy paper cup. Grandma approached the counter and said she had an appointment. Behind it, a woman took down her name. They spoke in Spanish. I didn't let Grandma know that I knew more Spanish than I let on. The lady told us to take a seat. We sat together next to a woman who anxiously tapped her feet like she was sending Morse code. From a bottle with a picture of a strawberry on it, she rubbed pink lotion into the folds of fat in her arms. The too sweet smell of it filled the lobby. "Fabian," a nurse yelled from an open door by the counter just a few minutes later. We both stood. Grandma pushed me on the back of my head to move me forward. The nurse showed us to a room at the end of a narrow hallway. A man with a white coat stood there holding a clipboard. He smirked at me, and I immediately didn't like him. "Hola, Doña Miriam," he said, and they kissed on the cheek like they were old friends. "Is this little Lucia?" he said in English. Not so little," Grandma said in Spanish. She grabbed my stomach and pinched it. I winced. "She eats like a boy. She eats everything." "We can take care of that," the man said, and then looked at me. He turned and picked a syringe off the table. "You should lose 20 pounds. How old are you, Lucia?" "Almost 14, I said. I stared at the syringe. "See, now is a good time. You'll want a boyfriend soon. Now lower your pants. I need to give the shot in your behind." "Ahorita," Grandma said. "No," I stepped back. "Lucia, don't be scared. It's just a shot, a secret formula that will make you beautiful. I'll give you pills too." He got closer and I could see the brown liquid in the syringe. I shook my head. Grandma slapped me hard. I kept my face still, refusing to show it hurt, even as the pain shot into my cheekbone and stayed there. The doctor stayed silent. "Ahorita," Grandma repeated, and I unbuttoned my pants and pulled them down. The needle felt as thick as a tree as it slid behind my skin and then slowly came back out. I wanted to cry, but held it in. "Good, now maybe I can finally say you're my granddaughter." I walked into the lobby and surveyed the room. I guess all the women were there for the same reason. They all wanted shots and pills. They all wanted to be pretty. The pain from the shots spread to my chest as we walked out of the building and into the bright sun. Grandma smiled at me for the first time in a while, as though whatever had been in that shot was transforming me already. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Another one definitely stands out from the book. If you haven't already, picked up Open Heart Chicago, please do. But not only that, get Cyn's book of short stories too. Recently released on Tortoise Books. Couple Tortoise authors here with us again today, which is nice to see. So many locals out here. Yeah, there's Jeremy. Nice to see you, sir. Who's up next? David, I think it's going to be you. So David Matthews is with us tonight. David earned his MA in writing and publishing at DePaul University. I think I heard of that place. His work has been nominated for Best of the Net, a push cart, and he was finalist in the Gwendolyn Brooks Open Mic Awards. His recent publications include Midwestern Gothic, Electria Magazine, Endlessly Rocking, an anthology honoring the 200th birthday of Walt Whitman, and Belt Magazine's Rust Belt Chicago, an anthology, which is another great book. Pick that up for sure. A lifelong Chicagoan who grew up on the Northwest Side, David works as a creative writing instructor at the Chicago High School for the Arts, or as it's commonly known, Chi Arts. There it is. Yeah, Jeremy represents Chi Arts. So David, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the Chicago Area Hall of Fame for hosting, and thanks, Vince, for including my work. I just have two small pieces. The first one is inside Open Heart Chicago, sketches of Northwest Side of Chicago Parish Carnivals. Our Lady of Victory, 1985, 11. We pull up in a 70s avocado station wagon with a bad muffler. My family and I walk around to the music of Cyndi Lauper. We mostly went to see the carnival the way people look at Christmas windows downtown. There was not enough money to go on more than one ride each. The kiddie ones were the cheapest, like the one with the little boats going in circles. As City Lomper sang time after time, I looked over my shoulder while I prayed no one I knew would see me. St. Bart's, 1990. 16. The tilt-a-whirl spun as AC/DC sang of American thighs, and my friends and I ran into the girl in biology class that used to throw herself at me. After she walked away, my boys busted my balls for not wanting to fuck her. Tall blonde headbanger rocking a tank top, stretchy jeans, and pirate boots. She scared me. She seemed to drink as much as my stepfather. St. Pascal's, 1999, 25. My sisters wanted me to get out of the house. I ate elephant ears with extra sugar while Everlast played and the Ferris wheel lights blinked on the beat. I tried my hand at some game that involved throwing tennis balls into buckets. I knew I wasn't going to win anything. I just needed to throw something and forget about being stuck in neutral. What It's Like died down and I could hear cheesy carnival music faintly far off, like what I imagined mocking would sound like. St. Ferdinand's, 2013, 39. I needed a break from my own thoughts. We live a block away from the parish. Pitbull was rapping about feeling the moment as a giant octopus spun around in the air. Jill and I walked, and I looked around at the kids with their parents, the teenager cliches, and the 20-somethings on dates. They all looked like they were having fun. We were not moved to go on any of the rides. The next morning, as I walked my dog, Seamus, I took pictures of the ghost town of empty rides with my phone. They seemed to be the same metal mechanical rides as when I was a kid. Like no one makes them anymore, or they make them the way people want to remember them looking. There is no music. Belmont has a few cars on it. They sound more like a breeze than traffic. Around here, carnivals come every summer. Carnivals always remind me of things I cannot have. And then, thank you. This is about Chicago doesn't exist anymore. It's a short piece. Chicago shrimp shacks. In the Chicago I'm from, working folks cash checks to treat themselves to deep fried shrimp from mom and pop shacks, places with names like Vito, Nick's, Al's, Fat Johnny's. Back then, no one would say some shit like, shrimp from shacks will bring my property value down. Everyone waited in long lines like sacred communion to be full-fledged citizens of the democracy of Greece. We dipped juicy jumbo shrimps like classically trained painters into mixed cocktail sauce and hot sauce. Back then, no one would say some shit like shrimp shacks aren't gluten-free. It was a reward for getting by. That was big in the Chicago I'm from. I remember us waiting for my stepdad in our beat-up avocado station wagon with the bad muffler, the radio playing something like Cheap Sunglasses. Back then, no one would say some shit like shrimp shacks sound seedy. My stepdad talked to the guys like he was giving a cleansing confession. Deep fried shrimp and sauce was our transubstantiation. Some are still around like scattered buried treasure. I can find them, like an old stray cat that knows which back porches to go to in between licked wounds. Thank you.
Very Catholic vibes from these last two stories. Let us proclaim the mystery of our faith. Deep fried shrimp, loving it. Yeah, I picked that story. Now, well, obviously, it's the one that you sent me, but I really liked that story because I've always had a thing for carnivals. I got some family here tonight, so St. Albert's carnivals represent, which is Southwest Burbs, different part of town, but I still feel like it's very relatable, those carnival vibes for sure. So thank you so much, David. All right, up next, we have got Joe Mallon. So Joe was born on the south side of Chicago, spending his early years in the Mount Greenwood neighborhood. I think I heard of it. He grew up on Sacramento Avenue, right down the street from the Knights of Columbus Hall. He was lucky enough to live across from the Grand Trunk Railroad line, where a strip of land known as the Prairie, between the tracks and streets served as a field for baseball, football, hockey, and any other game the kids on the block invented. After the required post-college trek to Lincoln Park, he now lives in the Beverly neighborhood with his wife, Barb. Hello, Barb. He has raised 4 wonderful children there. Without a doubt, Joe is here to read us one of the more interesting stories from the anthology. So Mike's working, take it away.
You don't mind if I sit here, do you? This place is packed. Michael looked up. No problem. He went back to his writing. The stranger took a sip of his coffee. It was in a mug, not a paper cup the way everybody else in the coffee shop had theirs. You a writer? Michael's eyes peered up. What? Oh, yeah, a writer. Wow, cool. I could never do that. Can't write a sentence to save my soul. Hey, this place is crowded. Man, the line is out the door. Michael ignored him, keeping pen to paper. The guy was annoying. That was the risk of writing in coffee shops, but better than writing at home. Too boring, too quiet and lonely. He looked down at his cup and winced. Half full and cold and God, it's just shit. What do you write? Michael looked up. What? Novels, short stories? Are you a reporter or something? No, novels, murder mysteries mostly. Yeah, wow, murder, death and all that. Can't beat a good murder mystery. That's what I always say. Michael shrugged. It's a living. I mean, who wants to die, really? Everybody dies. Yeah, but when? Michael looked up. How the hell do I know? When is your time, I guess? Yeah, but would you want to know? Know what? Would you want to know the exact time when you're going to die? Down to the hour? Down to the last second? Michael resumed writing, ignoring the question. Maybe he'd go away. How about this? Would you want to know where you're going to die? Michael continued to write, but the question took hold of him. Would he? Would he want to know? So he could avoid that place for the rest of his life? He shook the notion out of his head. It was a stupid question. Well, the stranger said, Peoria, okay? He slammed his pen down. Look, I'm trying to write. Go somewhere else, or I'll call a barista. The stranger nodded. Sorry. He put his finger up and pursed his lips. But, Peoria. Interesting choice. I wonder if driving through it counts. Or do you have to stop? Say, have a meal or stay overnight on your way to New Orleans or something. Oh, Jesus Christ. Like for Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras? I'm driving to Mardi Gras? I'm just saying. I mean, it's something to think about, right? I mean, you choose Peoria. You think you're safe, small town and all that. And all you're doing is driving on I-55 through Peoria, no stops, then bam! A car crosses the lane, head-on crash, and you're dead. It makes you think, huh? No, it doesn't. Michael signaled for the barista. That ever work? What? Calling for the barista. Tried it myself a couple times. Couldn't get the time of day. Of course I have. But then when Michael thought about it, he never called for the barista. Huh, you must have the Midas touch. Stranger paused. Or, what if you knew who was going to cause the death? Okay, now, that means you got to take diseases out of it. No cancer, heart disease, nothing like that. I mean, how is a person going to cause cancer? Am I right? No. It has to be some kind of accidental death, like that driver coming into the other lane. Or murder. Sir, Michael raised his hand, signaling again to the barista. For instance, what if your fate rested in the hands of a barista? Maybe that one, the one you're trying to call over here. Maybe he's so pissed off, maybe at the job or at you, or maybe he's just a psych job. He comes over here and he guts you with a jackknife. Wouldn't you want to know if he was the guy? You could sneak out the back door right now. The barista still didn't respond. Michael held the stranger's stare for the briefest of moments. You know what? Keep the table. I'm moving. He packed up at the same time, looking for another table. Nothing. Stranger looked around as well. Hey, looks like you're out of luck, buddy. You're stuck with me. He raised the coffee to his lips, this time taking a hard chug. I got it in a mug. They'll give it to you if you ask. Did you know that? Keeps it nice and hot. Tastes better, too. Michael pulled out his writing materials. He didn't know why he bothered. The morning was wasted by this moron. He slammed his writing table down on the table. Look, I really got to get something done. The stranger held up his hand in surrender. Okay, I just like meeting new people. I'll be quiet. The stranger's silence didn't last long. His voice lowered. What if it was me? Michael looked up. What? What if I'm the guy? What guy? You know, the guy. What if you pissed someone off so bad, I mean really bad, and they wanted it taken care of in a coffee shop, say this one, at say 1:35. And the guy to do it was supposed to be me. Weird, huh? Michael glanced at his watch, 12:50. He shifted in his seat. The stranger paused, staring at the table, lost in concentration. You know what? This would make a great story. This is just like that old film noir movie. God, what was it? Now, what the hell was the name of it? Oh, this is bullshit. Michael stood to go. The stranger laughed. Look, I'm just yanking your chain. Look, I'm going to go buy a newspaper so I don't disturb you. And I'll buy a cup of coffee for your troubles. You're going to love it. Stays hot, no paper taste. Michael sat back down again. He could live with it if the guy read the paper. And he could use another cup of coffee. All right. Dark roast, easy cream, no sugar. And please, you gotta let me work. The stranger smiled. Deal. I'm dead to the world once I get a hold of that sports section. The stranger stood up and got in line. This was shit. He should leave, find another coffee shop, go home, write in his study, or at the kitchen table. Hell, writing in his notepad on Michigan Avenue sidewalk would be more productive. So why did he stay? Something about the guy. The stranger ordered 2 cups. He had to admit it. Getting it in a mug was a good idea. The stranger moved over to the cream and sugar table. Michael tapped his fingers, studying the stranger as the man added cream to both mugs. He returned, placing each mug in front of them. Takes a hell of a long time to put cream into a couple of cups of coffee these days, Michael said. The stranger smiled. Cheers, he said, raising his mug. They touched mugs and both took a sip. The stranger looked at Michael with a look of expectation. Well, what do you think? I gotta say, it's pretty good. hints of chocolate. Do you taste it? Yeah, I do taste it. Chocolate. Nice. Like it, eh? It's good. I gotta admit it. There's another flavor, though. I can't put, excuse me. I can't put my finger on it, though. I figure 1 o'clock, maybe a little after. I could be wrong. What do you mean? It's got a nice nutty flavor to it, doesn't it? Michael took another taste. He nodded. Yeah, that's it. It's the chocolate and nutty flavor combined. His breath caught. Why did it feel different? His breathing was odd and strange and difficult. The stranger crossed his hands. You remember a girl named Karen? I think you used to date her. Then you cheated on her. Took all the money out of her bank account, ran all her credit cards up to the max. You remember her? My throat. He inhaled, gasping for air. Karen, God, no. Me, he shook his head. I wouldn't do something like that. He inhaled. A guttural noise accompanied it. Karen? She's dead. Michael's throat closed, his face crimson. Beads of sweat arose on his forehead. Dead? His heartbeat grew faster. She killed herself. Good kid from what I hear. But hey, it happens, right? It wasn't. Michael grabbed his throat. Please. His voice a coarse whisper. The sweat dropped down his forehead. Peanuts. You've got a problem with peanuts, am I right? Ironic, because peanuts aren't really nuts. He pointed at his bag. A gurgle. EpiPen. Sorry, champ, that's gonna be coming with me. He reached inside Michael's bag, removing the EpiPen. By the way, in case you're interested, future reference and all, the nuts used in coffee tend to be almonds. I brought my own peanuts. I grind them up in my own grinder. Picked it up in Spain. It's an antique. Michael tried to call for help. Nothing came out. He tried to stand, almost knocking over the table. His breath caught inside him. Gotta call for help. No words came out. The stranger smiled, straightening the table. He looked around the crowded coffee shop, shaking his head. Kids, look at them. He bent over and dabbed Michael's spilled coffee with a napkin. He leaned towards Michael, whispering. All they do is look at their phones, listen to their music, can't hear a thing, don't see a thing. Whatever happened to a good conversation? Michael tried to motion for the barista again. The stranger held Michael's arms like an old friend and propped him up. Easy, champ. The stranger looked at his watch, held it up, tapped it. Whoa, look at the time. 12:58, I got to blow. Please, his voice, dry and unwanted whisper. I'll die. The stranger wiped his prints from both cups. Probably at 1:35. Ironic, eh? Please. The stranger stood to walk out. He smiled. Hey, listen. Good luck with the book.
And big old jazz hands. I mean, I knew, of course, having read and edited this thing where this was going, but perhaps that's why I'm laughing the entire time you're reading it and smiling devilishly. But that, I don't know, that's my humor. So black humor. But what a nice dramatic reading that still made me smile with great anticipation for the ending again. Nice job, Joe. Thank you so much. Who do we have next? Oh, this is going to be great. We have Dipika Mukherjee, who moved here from Shanghai in 2012. Spends a lot of time at the neighborhood Harold Washington Public Library, near where I work. Wonderful. She's the author of the novels Shambhala Junction and Ode to Broken Things, and the story collection Rules of Desire. Her writing is included in the Best Small Fictions 2019 and appears in World Literature Today, Asia Literary Review, Del Sol Review, Chicago Quarterly Review, Newsweek, Los Angeles Review of Books, Hemispheres, and Orion, big-time publications. She teaches at Story Studio Chicago and the Graham School at the University of Chicago. All right, so without further ado, take it away. This is going to be great.
Thank you, Vincent. All right. Whoa, Joe, that's a hard act to follow. That was a beautiful, dramatic reading. And my story, I think, is going to be a lot sadder. Basically, I just need to give you a little bit of a background because this was written because of something that was in the news when I started writing it. Malaysia Airlines 370 disappeared on the 8th of March, 2014, with 227 passengers. And it's still a mystery what happened to that Malaysian Airlines flight. And I think, you know, I was just kind of following the news. I have a lot of relatives in Malaysia, and that kind of led to this story. So a bit of background, and I'll just jump right in. For the past 2 years, Dr. Nash has been prescribing sedatives and antidepressants. It must be the medication slowing down my heart so that I can't climb any stairs, and the breathlessness that wakes me up at nights, gasping for air and finding none. I'm alone on such nights. My wandering irritates no one. There is nobody to be disturbed by the sound of the TV at 3 in the morning when insomniacs are peddled things they do not need. There is no child to climb sleepily on my lap, such weighty love. Dr. Nash has shepherded me through the past years. She knows how fragile I've become. I, once undaunted by life, I once thought the universe modulated its flow to make my life easier, to make the desires of Anish and Anisha come true because of the merits of past lives and daily prayer. Then the Malaysia Airlines flight disappeared, like a star extinguished in the night sky, taking Anish and Anwesha from me. I flew to Kuala Lumpur earlier than I was expected. When Kira hooked me up to the ECG machine at Dr. Nash's office this morning, her hands were clumsy. She's young, interning while waiting for medical school acceptances, and very apologetic. She peeled the monitors off my skin again and again. When the sheets were printed out and Dr. Nash told her to wheel me into the emergency room at Northwestern Medical, she stumbled near the elevator, pitching me forward. My blood pressure registered 181/120. They did another ECG at the emergency room and mumbled about T-wave abnormality. Kyra asked whether someone could be with me, and when I said no, she didn't press further. She bought me lunch from Saigon Sisters upstairs, thoughtfully Asian and only slightly spicy, and I ate on a gurney in the emergency room. Kyra looked defeated when she left. Now I'm in the cardiac care unit, a place filled with old men my father's age. I think of my father so far away, seated in front of the TV, windows open to the tropical heat and pollution of Damansara Utama, because he can't bear air-conditioned rooms. It is early morning in Malaysia. My mother is reading the papers over her morning tea. There is a cry from a room opposite, then sobbing, then it all goes quiet. I know now to interpret signals of grief. Sobbing does not come to everyone, such easy relief. I'm watching the screen, a human heart in action. It is a beautiful thing, this pulsating, pumping, masculine organ within my female body, creating lines that squiggle into mountains and hills with flat lands in between. I hold my breath, wondering if it will slightly change, but it doesn't, this mechanical thing. The black lines on the page continue a traitorous path. Anisha is a writer. She talks of black lines on a page and their ability to transport minds like magic. She's learning to read and write Bengali now and delighting in curlicues of the script in her mother tongue. Anish and I tease her about being an American-born confused Malaysian finding Bengali roots in college, but we are secretly thrilled that Anisha is a freshman at University of Chicago and still so close to home. Was close to home. Ina, the technician, shifts slightly, allowing cool gel to probe the underside of my right breast, and a long tongue flapping as if it torn appears on the screen. Is there a problem? Ina is measuring cavities and edges with precise red cross marks. That's a valve that blocks the regurgitation of blood, perfectly normal. Would you tell me if you saw something abnormal? She smiles. Her eyes are kind, used to dealing with frightened patients who find themselves in this room without much notice. But then again, maybe she knows. The doctor will read these images and speak to you later. Let me put it this way. If I see something concerning, you won't get on that treadmill. So if I take the stress test, my heart is fine? I can't tell you that. She carries on probing. The radiologist is a blonde Midwesterner who probably wants to be out in the streets, just like Ina, ushering in another new year with its promise of new beginnings. Instead, they focus on the pulsating screen. How did my heart keep on pumping through the months when it seemed so much easier to just give up? I willed it to give up, for my body to also become a non-corporeal thing, spiraling towards Anish and Anisha in a galaxy of stars. To seize upon the midnight with no pain. A young English poet, I forget who, had written those lines and died an early death. Anisha had driven me crazy memorizing that poem for a slam event, juxtaposing the macabre lines with a modern poem on police brutality on Black bodies. She had performed this at the Printers Row Literary Festival, and on that bright summer day filled with young families buying books from makeshift stalls, that performance left the audience bewildered. I now understand the conceit of singing in a dark garden, the happiness of death. I once stopped taking the medication that regulated this body, controlled my hypertension, until I had simply collapsed, needing to be whisked into Northwestern Memorial's emergency room in an ambulance that shrieked past the holiday crowds thronging Michigan Avenue and into a room of people asking me whether I knew which year it was, who the president of the United States was, and which city I was in. I'm becoming old friends with Northwestern Medical, but the only room I really want to be in is the morgue. I have seen therapists. I have mourned with Anisha's family and mine in Malaysia for 13 days, loud pudgeons every evening, the community coming together as a protective comforter around me for the 2 months I stayed. I followed the rituals, even taking imaginary cremated bones to the Malacca Straits on a boat and setting the flowers that were their ashes free. I eat nothing made out of any cereal at Akadashi. No onion, no garlic, no meat. Nothing helps. No one warns you that grieving is a game of one-upmanship. In Malaysia, women who had been widowed, parents who had lost children, even women who had miscarried, they all came to tell me they understood my grief. An aunt told me about a neighbor who lost both her sons in a car crash, as if losing one child was easier than losing two, as if death was a hierarchy of grief. I grew tired of the how are yous when no one understood how I tottered from moment to moment, veering between disbelief and hope. So I came back to Chicago, which has been home for the past 4 years, but where we are still strangers. In this big city, I can go for days without talking about Anish or Anisha, teaching my students, then returning to the closet where I sleep surrounded by Anisha's fragrance. Sometimes I sleep on Anisha's shirts, the ones casually discarded in the laundry basket. Dr. Nash wants me not to read the news reports or watch TV anymore, at least until I'm stronger. So I don't. But this morning, on the Purple Line to Evanston, the man across me was reading the Chicago Tribune, and there was a picture of a little boy, like a doll, washed up on the shoreline. My heart started to pound. I thought of the parents of this child, prayed that they were washed up on some shore like this, instead of bearing the worst curse of humanity. I got off at Dempster. I sat in the train station for an hour, but my heart would not subside. I'm going to end here. This is titled The Hierarchy of Grief, and it goes on for a little longer, but it's also, you can read it in the anthology. So thank you all for coming and listening to me tonight.
Thank you so much. Definitely a powerful one. I really, really like that. And I'm really glad to have you here reading it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we have a last reader who is coming all the way live from North Carolina. So one of the wonderful things about doing these readings on Zoom as opposed to in person is we get to reach out to some of the Chicago community who have relocated and have them share their work with us. So thank you very much, Nancy, for agreeing to do this. So Nancy Poling's Write What You Know efforts invariably return her to the years when she lived in Evanston and took the L to work in downtown Chicago. Her most recent book publications include While Earth Still Speaks, an environmental themed novel, and Before It Was Legal, A Black-White Marriage, 1945-1987, a nonfiction biography. She now lives in the mountains of North Carolina. So big welcome to Nancy.
Thank you. I've got to say, this makes me very nostalgic for Chicago, except I know it's snowing there and it's not here. So, The Harpy. There's plenty to go around, but we fight over scraps. In the alley less than a block from the library where Laura works. Our raspy calls compete with the squeaking brakes of delivery trucks. Not far from where my sister catalogs and shelves, then shelves and catalogs. In my claws, I grasp the remains of a cinnamon roll. What call number would you give this, Laura, you who must organize everything? Or should I ask what call, C-A-W, number? As I cackle over my sense of humor, my beak opens and I accidentally drop the piece of cinnamon roll. Another crow strutting down the alley, bobbing his head forward, then back, observes my mistake and scurries toward my morsel. I could fight for it, I guess, but decide not to. I refuse to eat indoors. For God's sake, Lark, Laura whispers, can't you sit like a woman instead of you're the only person I know who squats on a chair. I try. I've always tried to do what she says. I concentrate on my left leg, pulling it out from underneath my haunches, straightening it slowly, deliberately, until it sticks straight out in front of me. Now my right leg supports my weight. Flapping my arms, I lift my torso up ever so slightly. The green plastic chair tilts to the right, balances for a moment on two legs, then spills me onto the sidewalk where I lie staring up at the sky. For everyone to see, Laura hisses. I don't care that people have turned their heads in my direction. I do care that a black Labrador has placed his front paws on my chest and is barking a signal that the chase is on. Can't he see I'm in no shape to engage in a contest? His owner, a middle-aged man in shorts and a sweaty t-shirt, tries not to break the rhythm of the jog, bouncing up and down in place while the dog refuses to let me get up. A harsh jerk of the chain and a few words of profanity draw Fido to his owner's side. I arch my back and turn my head to see the runner still bouncing up and down, this time while he waits for the light to change so he can cross the street. The lab looks back at me with longing. Is she all right? People ask my sister. You wouldn't see her collecting books from the bin and not checking carefully when each is due. Yet Laura assures everyone that I'm fine. I'm still lying on the sidewalk, still eyeing the lab and its owner, who now run down Sheridan Road, when I spot within arm's reach the blueberry scone I was holding when I fell. I reach for it and take a bite. Laura whispers a reprimand. She's an expert whisperer, Laura is, because of her job, I suppose. I yell at her that I'm a dainty dumpster eater. She doesn't laugh, just whispers, that's been on the sidewalk where dogs walk, as one just did, and you don't know what germs are there. She throws the scone into the trash can and goes inside the cafe to buy me another. I lift myself from the sidewalk, hop over to the trash can, and take out my scone. For the next, how long is it in bird years? For a god-awful long time, I try to behave like a human being, nodding my head at everything she says. Yet I must stay alert, not let her dull voice lure me into carelessness. My head jerks from right to left, left to right. My piercing eyes take in the action of everyone around me. Customers in other green plastic chairs read their Sunday Tribune, sip their lattes. Muffins and bagels atop white paper doilies tempt me. Laura would buy me more, but the pleasure is not in the eating as much as it is in the snatching. People walk in every direction, some through the aisle between tables, some crossing at the light. Many carry long chairs toward the lake, and I'm anxious to get there myself. Meanwhile, Laura talks about her job in the library, how she caught somebody book snatching the other day and chased them all the way to the Cinemax. I picture her running after the book snatcher. I'm cheering for him. She wouldn't understand that he was trying to rescue the spirit trapped in the book, the spirit trying to fly up until no one can cram it back onto the shelf. Laura, the guard who keeps spirits captive. That's why the library is brick. It's easier to keep the spirits inside. Right now, though, I want to fly away, escape this woman who catalogs my mind, deciding where I shall be shelved, trying to trap my spirit. When she's finished her cappuccino and swallowed the last bite of cranberry muffin, she says it's time to take me back. Okay by me. As usual, she stands outside the door of my room, and instead of saying, I hope you had a good time, or it's been great being with you, she lectures me. I stay ahead of her, having memorized the list. For health reasons, I chirp, before she says, if for no other reason, then you must take a bath for health reasons. And social reasons, I chirp, as she begins to explain that nobody wants to be around a woman whose body odor precedes her. You need to bathe for social reasons, she says. You know why that dog was sniffing you, don't you? Before I have a chance to answer that some dogs have been bred to track birds, she says, because of your odor. Really, dear. She always says dear when she's lecturing me. I can hardly stand the stench myself. I don't defend myself anymore. I don't remind her that I have many feathered friends. At last she's gone, and I'm free to fly away. We're a watchful group, the 10 of us perched on the rusty wall extending into the lake. The wind ruffles my soft white feathers, creating a natural air conditioning. As if a gun has been shot, we rise as one, our back and forth calls shrill and joyful. I play with the wind, letting it lift me higher, higher yet, until I change direction and dive toward the water, then effortlessly swoop upward again. Laura could never imagine this, the freedom of being uncatalogued. She whispers answers to people's questions. Whoops. What happened here? Excuse me. I can't get the page set up there. She answers people's questions and organizes books. 910.23, then 910.24, 910.25. Mustn't let them get mixed up, the books. Must keep order. The lovely building, she often tells me. A great height to crap from, I've said. That's disgusting, she's told me. Back on the wall, I bring to the other gulls' attention that a woman has fallen asleep on a beach towel and her skin is turning the deep pink of an evening western sky. We try to warn her, swooping down, calling loudly back and forth. God damn you birds, she yells up at us, obviously not appreciating our kind attention. She walks to the water's edge to rinse off her leg as we all laugh. At a picnic table, I grab the biggest piece of food and press my claws against the table and lift off. It isn't greed that motivates me, but the delight from taking from humans the things they hold on to. The same may be said of the way they cling tightly to the spirit. It is only free when it has been wrestled from those who want to control it. The evening is too humid, my room too confining. I head for the L overpass, where my fellow pigeons roost. Now my body is leaden in color, heavy and clumsy. The calls I make to my neighbors are not shrill, not raspy, but soft and gentle. It's late. I flap my wings and lift my body up to the metal girder. There's a lot of movement, rustling feathers, shifting positions, accusations that someone's taking up too much space. The sounds, even when there's disagreement, are soothing, not people noises that put my nerves on edge and make me think only of escape. Before I've had time to tuck in my wings, I notice the body, back where the glow of the streetlight doesn't reach, where a passerby won't trip over it. Have any of you noticed? I ask around. I can tell the others don't want to see, don't want to know. I drop down and stand on the concrete inches from his face. The eyes are closed, there's no movement, no even breathing of the drunk or of the sleeping. I hop around checking for a sign of life. There is none. I'm overcome with worry about his soul. It must not get into the wrong hands, not into the hands of librarians like Laura, who will catalog it and shelve it in a place where it will be forgotten. I think of the boulders down at the lake, the crevices between them where water rushes in, swirls, then moves back out into the depths. I will not let your soul get into the hands of the librarians, I promise. I will lift it, carry it up over the lake. Then I will carefully hide it among the rocks in a place the water rushes into so that you will be carried out into the peaceful depths of the dark blue water. You will be free. I put my soft feathers against his face. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, no dogs were hurt in the making of that story, right, boy? Yeah, he jumped up here when he heard that and wanted to make
And some
sure.
of my favorite people are librarians.
Oh, good to know. So, thank you so much to our readers. Quick shout out before we wrap. First of all, thank you all for coming to this. Zoom readings are definitely always a little interesting in this era of COVID, but again, I think it's afforded us the opportunity to get a lot of people from out of town, including Nancy, our reader. So thank you all very much for coming. Quick shout out to some of the faces and names in boxes I see that I recognize from the anthology, like Jeremy, who just threw something in chat. Gary, I thought I saw you here as well. Vimy, Dorothy's here. Paul, you made it. I didn't think you were going to come. Wonderful to see you. And I think that's most of the readers that I saw. If you are here and you contributed, oh, well, there's someone named Lo. I don't know who that is. But yeah, a lot of the people from the book showed up, so that's great. A lot of people, it's great to sort of see you again, and I hope I can see you in person. So stay tuned for more information about possible events coming as the weather warms and Omicron fades. Thanks again to the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame and Amy Danzer for putting this all together and hosting. Wonderful to have that connection, that's for sure. And I'll invite everybody before we sign off to go ahead and you can turn your mics on and all scream yay or thank you or applaud, with actual noise this time before we break. So,
good job. Good job.
Great job, everyone.
Good job.
Actual noise.
Yeah.
and happy
Great stories. Beautiful stories.
Could I ask?
Happy birthday to my dad real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday. Hey, Cyn, what's the name of your book that's on Tortoise?
On the Way. It's,
On the Way?
Yeah. But if you just put On the Way, you'll get a lot of Amazon. So you have to be really specific.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have to say, because I live so far away and I don't see my Chicago friends. Hi, Verna.
Hi, Nancy.
Nancy, you really represented. You brought a lot of people here. There's a lot of pollings, and apparently you know half this crowd. So thank you so much for that. Family, lots of family here. So thanks to my family for showing up too. It's great that you guys got to come to this one.
Great invite. Thanks for letting us know. On a
Thanks for all
roll.
the Shy Arts people that came. I saw 3 or 4 names in the Shy Arts family that are here.
See, this Chicago place has, we look out for each other in this town, right?
That's right.
It's what's called clout. We bring in our clout friends here.
May I say, Dipika, I just finished your piece last night and it brought tears to my eyes.
Thank you, Nick. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
I even sent you a note on your website.
Yes, I saw that. And I was going to respond to it because it made my day. Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm a really slow reader, so I haven't got to all of them yet. So it was nice hearing some I have read and then some I haven't. Yeah, definitely.
And then you get to skip those because you've had them read to you. So
That's true. That's true. Or read them again.
Well, I just saw a message from Dorothy Lamfrey, who has one of the last stories in the book and definitely one of the most grim and gruesome. So I think future reading, Dorothy, I'm going to have you come and freak everybody out with your surgery stories. So
oh God, Lane all like that.
Nick is going to make it into an audio book too. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 8:15. We wrapped it just in as much time as I thought we would. So thank you again, everybody, for coming. And we'll talk soon.
See you soon. Organizing. Bye.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick. Happy birthday.
Bye, Joanne.
Bye-bye.